every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, June 9th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Heather Parton, columnist at Salon, or you may know her as Digby, from the Uber blog Hullabaloo, to look back on this very increasingly busy week in news. Also on the program today, Trump caught on tape. Also indicted. 7 counts in the stolen documents case. But who will be the presiding judge? Meanwhile, the Supreme Court upholds Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, strikes down Alabama congressional maps, may, just on its face, end up providing Democrats a majority in the House in 2024. Ukraine ratchets up its counteroffensive now with Western tanks. Texas developer at the center of the Ken Paxton. He's the Texas AG's impeachment trial, has been arrested by the FBI. I should say the developer, not Paxton. Fox News says Tucker's anti-Semitic Twitter show was a violation of his contract, not the anti-Semitic part. Pat Robertson, still dead, joined by James Watts. He was the Interior Secretary under Reagan, who thought the Interior Secretary's policies were too conservation-oriented. U.S. and Iran nearing an interim nuke deal. Progressives in Congress urge Biden to have a backup plan for student debt relief. In another case, the Supreme Court upholds the right of citizens to sue states violating their Medicaid policies. And lastly, the House Ethics Committee restarts the Matt Gaetz investigation. Oh, and actually, lastly, Julian Assange loses his extradition challenge. He will appeal sometime next week. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. It is Casual Friday. Emma Vigland, happy Casual Friday to you.
Happy Casual Friday to you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. This is soft collar, right? I'm kind of
soft collar. I get a more formal soft. I was wearing t-shirts for a while. I may go back to that. Lot of stuff to get to. Obviously, the Trump indictments, but also we now know at least parts of what's in that tape from CNN that CNN somehow has. Well, we know sort of how CNN got it too, and why that tape was created. We'll talk about that with Heather. We should say, like, you know, it was people ghostwriting. It was the ghostwriters for Mark Meadows' autobiography who must have taken the tape. I mean, it's quite clear.
Must have. I mean, we're just waiting, I feel like, on news about what Meadows' testimony actually entailed, because the Trump people at least seem to think that he flipped. So, I mean, there's no confirmation, but seems that way.
Can't trust anybody.
You cannot. There's no honor amongst thieves. But, you know, it's starting to become, it's going to be a real question. Like, you know, what's going to happen with the 2024 race? I don't think any of these trials will come up. I don't even think even in the best case scenario or the worst case scenario for Trump, that he would go to jail before November of 2024. But I mean, we'll talk to Digby about this. In the meantime, I know this case broke an hour before. Oh, and Pat Robertson died. I missed that yesterday.
Yes, we talked about that.
That was a real
bit.
shame.
Yeah.
That guy, really horrific. Maybe, well, I don't have that piece of tape, but we'll talk about Pat Robertson a little bit later, but I want to get to this. There were two cases that came down yesterday for the Supreme Court. One was the Talvesky case. We'll talk about that in the fun half. We brought it up. We did some coverage, I think, of it with an interview with Tim Jost, who is a professor, maybe emeritus now I can't remember which law school it was. But he is handles particularly like healthcare law in this country. We'll talk about that. That was Gay BJ's first major opinion that she's written. But I wanted to just point this out, and I think we'll have somebody on next week to talk more about these details of this Voting Rights Act case, because it's a rather stunning outcome, particularly if you're aware of how long John Roberts has been jonesing to get rid of the Voting Rights Act. Now, to be clear, they have really pulled apart and destroyed massive parts of the Voting Rights Act. They've gotten rid of essentially pre-clearance. They have, which was a massive aspect of the Voting Rights Act. They have it just made it much harder to enforce these things. But in this instance, part of Section 2, the court basically threw out Alabama redistricting maps. Now, they could have done this before the 2022 election. They had the opportunity at least to address it. They punted. And so, in fact, the 2022 election went ahead in Alabama with what we now know to be unconstitutional congressional districts. This case, the Milligan case, basically talked about set-asides for racial districts, measuring how discriminatory these congressional districts are by simply looking at the numbers. You have 27% Black population in Alabama, and they had 1 out of 7 congressional districts that was represented by a Black person. And obviously this is not a one-to-one thing, but the idea is that there has been a significant history in this country, if you're not aware of it, in disenfranchising Black voters. And there really is no other way to ensure that there is some type of equal ability to vote and impact the outcomes of that vote, other than to have a certain algorithm where you set aside districts. And there's, we don't know the internal workings of the court. Kavanaugh and Roberts sided with the 3 liberal justices. We don't know if pressure from the outside and questioning and certainly we know the justices are upset about they are aware that the court is perceived to be compromised in many ways. So we don't know what impacts that. But I want to point out this clip. This is a clip of Ketanji Brown Jackson in October, I think it was, when the oral arguments for this Milligan case were held. This is just an audio clip, but it is Ketanji Brown Jackson making an incredibly compelling argument that the 14th Amendment and those provisions in the 14th Amendment that are that talk about voting rights were not written to be race neutral, but instead were Reconstruction era amendments, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th, but particularly the 14th, was written in such a way and with the intent of making sure that freed slaves, people who had been disadvantaged, have a fighting chance to have political representation. Let's listen to this argument because it appears to have been rather compelling.
I don't think we can assume that just because race is taken into account, that necessarily creates an equal protection problem, because I understood that we looked at the history and traditions of the Constitution, at what the framers and the founders thought about. And when I drilled down to that level of analysis, it became clear to me that the framers themselves adopted the Equal Protection Clause, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment in a race-conscious way. That they were, in fact, trying to ensure that people who had been discriminated against, the freedmen, during the Reconstruction period, were actually brought equal to everyone else in the society. So I looked at the report that was submitted by the Joint Committee on Reconstruction, which drafted the 14th Amendment. And that report says that the entire point of the amendment was to secure rights of the freed former slaves. The legislator who introduced that amendment said that, quote, unless the Constitution should restrain them, those states will all, I fear, keep up this discrimination and crush to death the hated freedmen. That's not a race-neutral or race-blind idea in terms of the remedy. And even more than that, I don't think that the historical record establishes that the founders believed that race neutrality or race blindness was required, right? They drafted the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which specifically stated that citizens would have the same civil rights as enjoyed by white citizens. That's the point of that act, to make sure that the other citizens, the black citizens, would have the same as the white citizens. So they recognized that there was unequal treatment, that people based on their race were being treated unequally. And importantly, when there was a concern that the Civil Rights Act wouldn't have a constitutional foundation, that's when the 14th Amendment came into play.
So, I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
She is, but I will add just some explanation to it, because she's basically saying she is addressing these members of the court with their own sort of like type of analysis. I don't know that she would necessarily deploy that type of analysis if they weren't there, but there, so much of what the court does says, like, we need to interpret these amendments and constitutional and the constitutional amendments and the Constitution itself and maybe laws as, you know, with the intent of what they meant at that time. And she does that. She basically, she says both the statute, the civil rights statute from 1867 was written explicitly with color, race in mind, because it was basically saying there is a cohort of people in this country who have been disfranchised, who haven't had their full set of rights relative to those who have. And we want to make sure that they get those rights. And then to the extent that they felt like, oh, this could be an equal protection under the law problem, they wrote these amendments to provide the constitutional undergirding to make these laws constitutional.
For equal protection. And you can't provide equal protection without without including the context of discrimination of racial groups into your analysis. Like that is the originalist framing for the 14th Amendment, at least. Exactly. Or not originalist, I guess, but still the writers of that law at the very least. Exactly.
I mean, that's the point, is she's making it clear that was their intent. explicitly in some instances.
And
so,
maybe Alabama just went too far. Like if black voters are a third of the population and only have one essentially congressional representative out of 7, maybe the court was like, we can't uphold our legitimacy any longer if we choose to side with this. I mean, it was too egregious potentially.
There's a bunch of theories out there as to why they decided to go this way, and we'll talk to somebody next week who might have more insight, or at least better, more developed theories for it. But there's also the argument that like they don't anticipate a lot of these cases coming up anymore. You're going to deal with it, Alabama. You're going to have a problem in Louisiana with there's going to be follow-up cases in Louisiana and Georgia, maybe North Carolina. But this is, I think in their thinking, an issue that could be a good one to give away in that respect. But we're going to talk to Digby a little bit about that in just a moment. First, a couple of words from our sponsors. One of Emma's favorite sponsors. This episode is sponsored by Hello Tushy. As you go out, there's a lot of places you can go that are refreshing over the course of the summer. Produce aisle, walk-in beer cooler. Apparently,
I was like a lake or something. Yeah.
The portable
lake,
Hello Tushy.
a lake, air conditioner at the cinema, and of course your Hello Tushy bidet. Give that. Booty shower fresh clean whenever the swamp butt hits. Honestly, folks, if you have ever tried a bidet, you understand why it's almost impossible once you've tried a bidet to do anything else but to use water to clean your bum. A Hello Tushy bidet cleans your bum 2 times better than wiping and prevents poop particles from spreading to your hands and everything you touch. Well, it is. It's far more sanitary. It makes a lot more sense. When your hands are dirty, you don't just use a dry piece of paper to clean them off. Use water. You cannot believe both how effective it is and, frankly, enjoyable it is. And then what you do is you spray, you pat, and you pat dry. And here's the best part. It attaches to your existing toilet. You do not need any type of expertise. You don't need a plumber. You don't need anything like that. It requires no electricity, no, like I say, additional plumbing. Not only does it cut your toilet paper use by 80%, it just feels better. So the Hello Tushy bidet is going to pay for itself in a few months. And again, super easy to connect. If you can connect the toilet seat, you can connect this. Every Hello Tushy bidet attachment comes with a 60-day risk-free guarantee and a 12-month warranty. Has over 100,000 5-star reviews. See why millions of people already love a Hello Tushy. Tushy is kicking off the summer with 40% off of all bidets. This is the time to do it, folks. This is the biggest sale of the year. It'll be running from May 31st through June 9th. Oh, so basically today. Go to hellotushy.com/majority. Use the promo code majority. Get 40% off plus free shipping on your bidet order. This has got to happen today to get 40% off. Go do it. You will not regret it. And we'll put a link in the YouTube and podcast descriptions. Also, this episode brought to you by Zippix. They have a wide range of toothpicks, many with nicotine, and basically it is a great opportunity and mechanism for you to stop putting smoke or vape oils in your lungs. Zippix allows you to get your nicotine fix anytime. You don't have to rely on smoking or vaping. Zippix toothpicks give you an easier, healthier, and more discreet way to get your nicotine and to help you stop smoking and stop vaping. They have 6 flavors They have 2 milligram and 3 milligram options of nicotine. Like I say, they're a great way to get off cigarettes and vaping. You can use them in flights, in your office, sporting events, restaurants, literally everywhere else that smoking and vaping are banned. And again, it gives you both your oral fix and your nicotine fix. And that's the path that it takes for you to quit smoking. It took me years to quit smoking. Toothpicks were a big part of it. Nicotine substitutes and toothpicks. And for those of us who still will still use toothpicks, but don't want to deal with any more nicotine whatsoever, they have some with B12 and caffeine toothpicks as well. Mm. They taste great. They have a couple of different flavors of this. This is the cinnamon spearmint one. Zippix has already helped tens of thousands of customers in leading a healthier lifestyle. And if you currently smoke or vape, they can probably help you too. Make your lungs happy and try Zippix nicotine toothpicks. Ditch the cigarettes, ditch the vape, get some nicotine-infused toothpicks at zippixtoothpicks.com today. Get 10% off your first order by using the code MAJORITY at checkout. Your lungs will be glad you did. Just a disclaimer, this product contains nicotine, which is an addictive chemical. You must be 21 or older to order. Zip more, smoke less with Zippix nicotine toothpicks. Kids, trust me, don't start smoking.
Oh, crap.
Don't start smoking.
No good. But if you want some toothpicks and you're off the nicotine, good. Here it is. Also, last sponsor of the day, Sunset Lake Seder, celebrating Father's Day. Regular dads, dog dads, and even plant dads. Save 20% on your order at Sunset Lake Seder with the coupon code DADHAT. That's one word. Orders over $100 will get a free Sunset Lake Seder dad hat included with their order. Their hats are super cool. It is time to celebrate dads in your life. Like I say, regular dads, doggy dads, even plant dads. They're all going to love a brand new spanking Sunset Lake Seder hat. Today until the 12th, save 20% on all Sunset Lake Seder products with the coupon code DADHAT. And that's not all. Orders over 100 will get a free navy blue Sunset Lake Seder dad hat included. Sunset Lake, great products. I used the melatonin and Seder tincture last night to get to sleep, frankly.
Same here.
Why I see so chipper today. Also, they have gummies with a little bit of THC in them. They have flour that is good for your entourage effect. They have a salve that I'm using. It's now my summer, eczema season. I got a little bit, it's going away right here. This stuff is going away. And I get a patch on my back, if you can believe it. But I use the salve. It's supposed to be for muscles, but I use it for my eczema. They're movement partners. They've given a lot of money to things like refugee resettlement and strike funds and prison reform, carceral state reform. They have great farming practices, no pesticides in this, and they have third-party evaluation of all their products. Check it out, sunsetlakesebede.com. Right now, use 20%, use the code DADHAT, 20% off your order. And if you get over $100 worth of stuff, they'll send you a free dad hat. All right, quick break. I'll be talking to Heather Parton or Digby. We are back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. As that song is indicating to you, it's asking if you're ready for some Digby, because in fact we have her here. Heather Parton, or Digby, from the blog Hullabaloo. Heather, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's a good Friday. I'm happy, feeling a little, I don't know, maybe a little smug, maybe a little schadenfreude, but yeah, it's a good day. And we don't have all that many of those. So I'm kind of happy right now.
Now, do we know, and I presume it's a function of the indictments coming out of Florida. There are 2 grand juries that have been assembled to look at the stolen documents case of Donald Trump. Now, I don't know that we know exactly what these indictments are per se, but because it's under seal. But we know that there are 7 criminal counts. They could range, involving the Espionage Act, obstruction, falsifying or destroying records, false statements, conspiracy. We're not sure yet, but they did this. They had this vote for the grand jury in Florida because that's where the offense took place. I don't know, Heather, aside from just, some joy, what are the first things that strike you about this?
Well, I think it's interesting that they moved it to Florida. That was unexpected. I hadn't heard. I follow this story pretty closely, and there hadn't been a lot of speculation that they were going to do that. Of course, now everybody's saying, well, of course they were going to do that. But there, a lot of the legal Eagle types certainly assumed that it was going to take place in D.C. Having it in Florida has some unique problems associated with it, one of which we're seeing this morning, which is that it has been at least temporarily assigned to Judge Aileen Cannon, who, as everyone probably remembers, was the person who, she was so far in the tank for Donald Trump in the early stages of this case. She got reversed twice by the appeals court, but she's the one who assigned the special master and did all that crazy stuff and actually affected a long delay in this case. It was several months before they worked that out. And for a long time, the Department of Justice couldn't even access the documents. And the intelligence community couldn't look at the documents that they'd found as part of her ruling. So this may be just sort of a pro forma thing because she's been involved in the case before, that it sort of automatically goes back to her temporarily, and it may be the case itself may be assigned to a different judge. But even so, Florida is not a very friendly place necessarily for prosecution, and it is a friendly place for Donald Trump. But apparently they had to move it there because there are a number of reasons, but the main one being that there's a case pending apparently that it's before the Supreme Court, who has not decided on this case, which would require that if the government makes a venue decision that's wrong, that it may throw out the case entirely with prejudice, meaning that they can't retry it anywhere else. So that the risk of getting a wrong venue is pretty high. And it sounds as though maybe the prosecutors, the feds, the special counsel decided, we're not going to take a chance. We'll take our chances in Florida. And a lot of the legal people are saying, look, he's got a pretty strong case from what we can tell. And it was probably, a reasonable decision for him to do it. So, but it changes everything, having it be down there in Florida. It's going to be a much different circus than it would have been in DC. What these cases are like. It's gonna be pretty crazy. Just starting with next Tuesday when he appears, we're going to see exactly how crazy it is, because Florida's crazy. And, I think there are going to be protests. There's going to be all kinds of, external activity that's going on. So this should be a very interesting case to follow through the summer. We'll see what happens. I think the big question is, where's this going to go in terms of the timing of the election, and how far will the federal government, the Department of Justice, allow the case to go it cuts it off in advance of the election. Now,
but okay. Well, hold on. Let's stop there. I do want to go back to some of that other stuff, but if we know that with his New York City case, and granted, it's not a federal case in New York City, but we know that the trial is set for about a year from when he was indicted. And so let's just use that as a marker. Maybe it would be a little bit quicker, maybe a little bit slower.
March 2024 is the New York date for the hush.
Yeah,
case.
and that's basically a year from when he was indicted. I mean, we don't know if it's going to be exactly, but it's a good sort of like barometer. Does the DOJ? My understanding is that the DOJ doesn't do anything new within. At least this is their internal policy, right? I mean, the Comey didn't exactly follow it in 2016, but my understanding is that the DOJ is not going to do. They could still have an investigation, but not, but put it on simmer, as it were, once you get within 6 to 9 months of an election. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they wouldn't continue on with the trial portion, right? I mean, that's more about investigation, I thought, so that they're not, once they've been indicted, they're indicted, and the only thing that's going to diminish prejudice against them, which seems to me would be a trial. So we really don't know. I mean, we don't really know about this, right? I mean, it's all sui generis because we're talking about a presidential candidate, but
well, that's right. I mean, it's a presidential candidate, and we've obviously never seen this before. No presidential candidate's ever been indicted while at being the front runner for the nomination. I don't know. I don't think anybody does, how they're going to do that. But just consider what the political pressure will be. You can already see it, and that's worth talking about. The right wing last night went completely batshit crazy. I mean, I've seen them do that before. We all have. But this was something else. I mean, I ended up laughing. I was writing my piece for Salon this morning, and I was up late doing it and trying to follow this. And I just kept looking at my Twitter feed and just bursting out laughing at the reaction here. And I it's not funny, really, but it's so incredibly shameless that you kind of have to, the hysteria was so up. I mean, one of them was saying that, it's the worse than the JFK assassination. I mean, they're saying things like that. They're calling for revolution. I mean, all of this stuff. I mean, they've just lost their minds over this. So now, one of the things that should be noted, there was a piece in the New York Times last night with written by Jonathan Swan, who seems to have some pretty good insight into the workings of the inner Trump world. And he claims that they planned all this, that they knew the indictment was coming down. They'd sent out talking points to all the top people, guys like Jim Jordan in the House was out within 5 seconds with this is a sad day for America, nonsense they were spewing. And they just came out one after the other. And in fact, the video that Trump put out last night, I'm an innocent man, he declared.
Let's watch that video. Hold on. Here is that video. We have that. This is what Trump posted last night to, was this the social media? Was
to
this
Truth Social.
Truth Social.
Can't post anywhere else.
I love the painting behind him here.
I just want to tell you, I'm an innocent man. I did nothing wrong. And we will fight this out just like we've been fighting for 7 years. It would be wonderful if we could devote our full time to making America great again. And that's exactly what we did. But now, again, our country is in decline. We're a failing nation. And this is what they do. I'm an innocent man. We will prove that again. 7 years of proving it. And here we go again. Very unfair, but that's the way it is. I just want to thank everybody. We are doing something very special for our country. We're putting America first. I always put America first. And that's why we were in a position. Unfortunately, that position is no longer valid because they've done such a poor job. But we're in a position where we're going to make America great again. I'm innocent, and we will prove that very, very soundly and hopefully very quickly. Thank you very much.
He's not quite on script.
I'm an innocent man.
That's funny about that. They filmed that before the indictment came down. According to Jonathan Swan, this was all, they had it all ready to go. They were just, waiting for, and of course, Trump was probably, and reportedly, hoping up until the very final moment that none of this would be necessary
Right.
and he wouldn't be indicted. But nonetheless, they were very well prepared. They got the right all prepared. They got everybody at Fox News all prepared. And they all came out with the same shrill, hysterical reaction, including, by the way, Ron DeSantis, who, although didn't say Trump's an innocent man, he did, he went full force into attacking the Department of Justice and the federal government, and said he's going to purge it of all these. If he gets in, he's going to purge it all of all these partisan players. And
We have that. We have
Yeah,
that tweet from Ron DeSantis. Let's put that up here, Heather, just because, to your point, not to cut you off, but this is he apparently did attack Trump later. But this was what DeSantis had to say on the campaign trail. But this is what he had to say in the wake of it. The weaponization of federal law enforcement represents a mortal threat to a free society. We have for years witnessed an uneven application of the law depending upon political affiliation. Why so zealous in pursuing Trump, yet so passive about Hillary or Hunter? Let me just pause for a second there. The idea that they're passive about Hillary Clinton or Hunter Biden. We're now in year 2 of Hunter Biden laptop investigations, and the Hillary Benghazi
3 or 4, I think.
3 or 4 maybe.
Year 8 of Hillary, I guess.
Yeah,
now,
I
at
mean
this point.
that's a rolling thing. But the DeSantis administration will bring accountability to the DOJ, excise political bias, and end weaponization once and for all. But I mean, can you just know who you're running against, dude? I mean, you're essentially giving Donald Trump that framing, and you know what he's going to do? He's going to turn around, facts be damned, because this case is happening in Florida, even though it's a federal case, and he's going to blame DeSantis for the two-tier justice system coming after me. We saw Glenn Youngkin tweet this too. They're trying to change two-tier justice system, they're going to repurpose it like they did with wokeness to make it about conservatives versus liberals, as opposed to, we say the two-tier justice system for the wealthy and the rest of us, but that's going to be their new tact, which is hilarious.
Yeah, and they actually, that's a long-standing tactic on the right, to seize upon the left's rhetoric and repurpose it for their own purposes. It's very effective. I mean, you got to kind of give them credit, because they'll take sort of like an earworm that's out in the ether, and then they'll use it for their own purposes. And yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. And this two-tier justice thing, I mean, that was one of the things I was laughing at. I'm going, oh, really? Yeah, poor Donald Trump. Poor Trump. He's just been so persecuted, and you think about these people. I mean, even in this particular case, the Mar-a-Lago case, there are people in jail for doing things far less egregious than what he, admits to doing. And the fact that he's the president, I mean, this is one of the points that just drives me nuts. The fact that he's the president, well, he's the president, so he can do this. I'm like, we really ought to hold presidents and former presidents to an even higher standard than some faceless bureaucrat who's working at the NSA. Maybe this guy ought to really be, I mean, I think there should be a two-tiered system of justice for former presidents. They ought to be expected to not just follow the law. They ought to be really, really, really honest and never do anything like this, because they are former presidents. But apparently in, Republican world, that's a ridiculous statement. He's being persecuted, poor Donald Trump. And of course they love that. I mean, that was one of the things as I was writing my piece last night, and I'm reading all these comments by these right wingers. And I mean, it's something else, from Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, all the usual suspects. And, one of the things that got me was, they're enjoying this. They're getting off on it. It really just kind of tickles their grievance nerve.
Oh, they get to be aggrieved and victims.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The whining, the rending of garments, the clutching of pearls. I mean, this is what they love. And this is what Donald Trump gives them. And you can see it, that when something like this happens, it happened after the Manhattan indictment too, that they're just instinctively. I mean, yes, they planned it. They sent out the talking points, whatever, but they didn't have to persuade anybody. I mean, they were ready to go and would have done so on their own. because they just love it so much. I mean, this is really what moves them more than anything else. And, we've seen that because, look at what happens when they try to do any, serious legislation. I mean, they're not interested. They don't care.
I want to circle back to that. And we should also just say that I've just seen news that Trump's top 2 lawyers were just resigned or quit, which could, in part be maybe a delay tactic, right? I mean, you're allowed to have counsel. You could argue that it's taking me a long time to get counsel. That pushes things deeper into the campaign season. But you mentioned the reaction of the right to this latest round of indictments. And we should also say, just people should keep in mind, this whole set of indictments was completely, like 100% completely avoidable by Donald Trump.
Yeah.
On multiple occasions, he just sort of like seemed to walk into this. The thing that's really going to, I think, be a lot more sort of damning ultimately and difficult is the indictments that we're probably going to see at the end of the summer in the state of Georgia over his full-on sort of like aggressive attempts to steal the election. But here is televangelist Robert Jeffress on Fox's Harris Faulkner's sort of like fill-in show on Fox for Tucker Carlson. One wonders, like, is this exactly who you want to bring out? And of course it is, because for them, it's just, this is all, there's no legal argument as much as there is, you want to be on the side of God. This is number 4.
And he's with me now. So, Pastor, first of all, what did you say to the former president?
Well, I said, first of all, there are millions of Christians that are praying for him right now. They love President Trump. He's the most pro-life, pro-religious liberty president in history. But I also said that he is immunized against any indictment because of the Durham report. The Durham report showed that the Russia investigation was a complete hoax and political. And look, Harris, we've seen this over the last 7 years. Since the time he descended the escalator in Trump Tower, we've seen people either try to keep him from office or to remove him out of office. And the same thing is happening right now. It doesn't.
I love
you can see that.
Yeah, sorry, but just a quick aside. I love the like semi-religious iconography of Trump descending as if from heaven to be their servant, but in this time it's just down an escalator to say Mexicans are rapists. Yeah. That godly man.
You can see the talking points about the 7 years, weaponized here. And this idea that somehow, first of all, the Durham report did not say what he said it did. It's been quite established that there was Russian interference in the election. That has been quite established. Whether it was enough to change the outcome, people can speculate on that until, the end of time. But that stuff was clear. And the Durham report in no way inoculates him from anything. It's just sort of a bizarre throw in there. But it's not just the crazy loons. Here's Nancy Mace, the supposed voice of moderation in the Republican Party. And she knows. I mean, the Republican Party is completely 100% a function of Donald Trump. And she knows she can't do anything other than sort of lament the fact that, Trump is a criminal.
And when you look at the standard that he has, it's a double standard. It's a second tier, a double standard of justice in this country. And what the American people want, they want everybody to be treated the same. And, Donald Trump's no fan of mine. He primaried me last year. So I'm not a shill, but I see this and I see how unfair it's been. And, I just can't believe this is happening. And I said this 2 days ago. Harris, I said that this was going to happen on the day that we either held in contempt Christopher Wray with the FBI or we got access to those documents.
You were right.
And what I predicted it. It came true. This is the banana republic. I just cannot believe that this is what's actually happening. He's trying to take out his political opponents using the executive branch. That's what this is.
All right,
Now, what's amazing about this to me is she is such a shill and so depraved that she obviously got word from the Trump people who obviously knew that the indictment was in the offing. That's why they recorded that before the indictment came. That's why everybody was ready to go out. She obviously knew this. That's why she made that prediction. She knew it was coming, and so she made that prediction. A lot of people complain that this indictment shows up when the Republicans are having like this incredible meltdown within their House Congressional Caucus. But she clearly is doing this to avoid a primary challenge in 2024. I mean, this is the way that she undercuts any of that sort of like talk that she's a rhino. And it is the defining sort of litmus test of being a Republican today. And this is why there is no such thing as a moderate in the Republican Party.
That's right. Because
this cohort of voters is not going to go away, it seems to me. They're here, and they're going to dictate what all of the Republican politicians end up doing.
Well, it's interesting. Last night, another reporter, Robert Costa, who's on CBS now, he also was reporting on, he had spoken with a number of the operatives working on the various presidential campaigns, just to suss out how they were going to react to this. And according to his reporting, they were all just going, well, we don't really have a choice. I mean, we're going to have to, these are the savvy, cynical operative types, not, they're telling the truth, which is we can't really go against him right now. But we're kind of thinking that maybe when the Georgia case comes down, or maybe another case, that maybe the fever will break or whatever. Maybe they'll smell blood in the water. And it's like, you've got to be joking. I mean, this idea that this is going to happen spontaneously. This has been the Republican view of this. Anybody who can see that Donald Trump is toxic to their brand, generally speaking, and nationally, certainly if he wins the nomination, I think they're very afraid if that he's going to lose, or maybe they're afraid if he wins. I mean, it's hard to know. Either way, it's bad for Republicans, and they just can't bring themselves to say anything. There was one presidential candidate who came out last night and said what anybody normal would have said in the pre-Trump time, which was Asa Hutchinson, the former governor of Arkansas, who, by the way, is as right-wing as they come. And he was an impeachment manager in the Clinton impeachment, by the way. He came out and said, well, he should resign. He should drop out of the race while because he's under these kind of, legal entanglements, which is the logical thing, right? You can't run for president while you're under indictment, federal indictment and state indictment and God knows what else. That's just the most absurd thing. And as the cliche goes, if you tried to put this in a script, they'd tell you, no, this is too much. Get out of here. We can't do this. So, he was the only one. Chris Christie, the gladiator who's coming in to take on Trump and punch him right in the nose and tell it like it is.
The last clip I saw him was like, he's going to get a fight this time.
Exactly. And he's sitting there, calling his kids grifters and everything else. What did he say last night? He said, well, I need to see the indictment before I say anything.
Oh my God.
So come on, Mitt Romney came out and said, this is just, this is, ridiculous. And this is something that, it's in, what I liked about his comment was it's in keeping with everything else Donald Trump has done since he entered politics, which I think is a pretty reasonable way to look at this. And, part of what I think in my piece that I wrote for Salon today, one of the things I wanted to make clear was, and you can say this over and over again, but it doesn't seem to really penetrate, certainly on the right, is that, Donald Trump has behaved bizarrely since the moment he got into politics. His behavior with the Russians in his campaign, and then as president, and the way he acted in every case, he's like incontinent. He can't control himself. The lack of discipline is beyond comprehension for an adult person, and so when he like the Mar-a-Lago case is a perfect example of it. I mean, it's all he had to do when they came and when he got caught, is say, oh, oops, chaos the day I was leaving the White House. I had nothing to do with packing this stuff up. come and get it. It's fine. Sorry about that. And it wouldn't have made a ripple. I mean, literally, nobody would have done it. We wouldn't even probably know about it.
No.
But the fact his refusal to cooperate, and then the obstruction and the obvious moving around of the documents and holding on to them and talking about them and all this stuff. If he wasn't doing anything nefarious here, if it was just totally innocent and he just didn't know, but he just wanted to keep him, then he's crazy. If it wasn't nefarious, then he was doing something nefarious. I mean, that's obvious.
I am no fan of him, but I think we can't discount the crazy. I really don't think. I mean, like you say,
I agree.
He had months and months and
There's
months
something wrong
to comply.
with him.
Let's put up those series of quotes. This is coming from CNN. They have the tape. And obviously this has the tape seems to have come from like Mark Meadows, probably like, what do you call it? Ghostwriters. And he's going, and what becomes clear with this is that he is trying to make sure that history treats him fairly. Like that's what's going on here. Like he doesn't, because if he was, let me read this and then my speculation. Well, with Milley, he's talking about Mark Milley, the former chief of Joint Chiefs of Staff. And Matt, if you want, I'll let you do some of these too.
Well, with Milley, let me see that. I'll show you an example. He said that I wanted to attack Iran. Isn't that amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look, this was him. They presented me this. This was off the record.
This is off the record. But
they presented me with
so this is the amazing thing. Is like he thinks he's just sitting around at like a bar trying to convince people like I'm the best. Like don't let them besmirch me.
He's notably not saying I declassified this.
Yes, right.
Well, he comes close to
this
it.
directly contradicts it. Yeah.
So he says this is off the record, guys. I'm letting you in the secret chamber.
They presented me this. This was him. This was the Defense Department and him. We looked at some. This was him. This wasn't done by me. This was him.
Okay. So the point is, he's trying to argue, I wasn't the one who wanted to attack Iran. Milley wanted to attack Iran, not me.
Yeah.
Like he lied. It wasn't me. It was him. And, and then it goes on, all sorts of stuff. Pages long. Look here. Wait a minute. Let's see here. And he's like fiddling through with like papers on his desk. And he goes, okay, see this? Let's see. I just found it. I just found it. Isn't it amazing? This is totally wins my case. Like he's.
Except it is like highly confidential, secret. This is secret information. Look at this.
Maybe this is favorite part is it's a secret information, highly confidential. Look at this.
And then he says, but then put this quote up. As president, I could have declassified, but I can't now. But
there we go. He might as well have just like shortened it and said, "This is the smoking gun." The smoking gun.
Here's the thing. If I was Trump's lawyers, right? Like, I mean, the obstruction, I don't know how they get out of, because it is quite clear, whatever demented reason he kept this. Now, it's hard for me to believe that he didn't keep this to in some way enrich himself. Although, like, why was it taking so long? Like, why wouldn't you need photocopies of this? I honestly think like there's so many ways to have done this in a way that was not like photocopy all this stuff, hand it back over. You got the documents. What do you mean I photocopied it? Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. And you're not even, you don't want, like, go in there with a scan on your phone. This is not a hard thing to do. And if you wanted to sell these or give them, but it's more like he was like, look at this. This is the actual ball that Joe DiMaggio hit out for his last home run. Like it's one of those things, but he's using it to try and sell these reporters on something. And if I was Trump's lawyers, I would just be like, I want to play you this recording of a guy whose name is what was it, Jack Miller, or what was his fake name?
John Barron.
John Barron.
John Barron. And just play the tape of John Barron, Trump's alter ego, when he wanted to talk to reporters. Trump is a known fabricator when it comes to the press, and that's because I don't trust the press. I don't respect them, so I lie to them. So when I said it wasn't declassified, it actually was declassified because I can do that.
Right.
But I wanted them
lying.
to make it feel like I was sharing something.
Yeah, it's called
scary
sizzle,
to them.
okay?
So it was declassified. I just lied to them, which is not a crime. You can lie to the press because they deserve it. They're the enemies of the people. Like,
Don't underestimate the fact they might use that defense and say he was
I would
lying
be
to
shocked
the
if they
press.
didn't.
Because it's fine. It's totally legal to lie to the press, and this shouldn't even be an issue. He just lied. That's all there is to it. He didn't have them. He never had them. But of course, they found a bunch of documents there.
Well,
that
he had the documents,
which is a
but
problem.
I'm making the argument about the classification. Like, I don't know how he gets out of the obstruction. I don't know how he gets out of that. The obstruction still could be years in prison. But so what? The way that you explained it before with all the responses from all the different presidential candidates, it does feel like they're like following the plan A is he goes to jail. Plan B is he passes away or becomes, physically debilitated because all this pressure that he might go to jail. And then I'll be here. What happens in that scenario? Like, is Ron DeSantis, let's assume, if Trump goes to jail, which I think the timing, it's impossible at this point for that to have happened by November of 2024, right? I don't know if he'll even go to jail at all, but the timing's definitely not going to be. Now, he could be convicted, but none of that, it seems to me like none of that's going to make that much of a difference in terms of his electorate, right? And he's certainly not going to drop out of the race. It's going to be all the more reason for him to stay in. So, how does this shake out?
That's his get out of jail card is, God help me. If I win, then this is all over. It's done. And he can't do anything about the state charges, what'll happen in Georgia and New York. But I think he figures that if he can win the presidency again, that he can finesse all of this, one way or the other, it'll be fine. And it's his only real, that's his only guarantee, really. Unless he gets found not guilty in every single one of these legal proceedings. And the E. Jean Carroll case just showed that he can be found guilty. This does happen even to Donald Trump. So, he can't be too happy about that. I don't know what happens. I think it's a jump ball. If for some reason he does just, go to sleep one night and doesn't wake up, or ends up, just being completely, shut out of the game for whatever reason. And who's left? I think it's a jump ball. I have no idea. I would have thought, and I think most people thought, that DeSantis was the heir apparent. He's the MAGA prince. But he's not very good, and it doesn't appear that he's really, gaining anything. He's losing, support. And although people say they would vote for him and they like him, I don't get the sense that he's necessarily the shoo-in anymore. So I don't know who it would be.
I don't know who that there's a limitation on him that has nothing to do with Trump within the Republican Party, because he doesn't. But if I were, if the DNC or whoever it is, George Soros wanted to pay me a couple $1 million, I would be out there doing one of those, who are those guys that got arrested? That Jack, I can't even remember the older.
Gosh. Those two guys?
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about the Jack.
What's his name? I can't remember it either.
What are we talking about?
They kept doing
guys that do stunts at hotels where it's you got evidence of this guy.
Well, I would get out there and I would hold a press conference, or I would claim I'm holding a press conference at the National Press Club to prove that Ron DeSantis has been the leaking to the DOJ, and he's been the one who's been feeding them all of this incriminating evidence that's faked up and ginned up from some Florida fake disinfo, lab that he's got. And that's what I would be doing. I would be trying to undercut DeSantis with the Trump supporters so that it just creates more dissension.
More chaos if anything should happen. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Jacob Wall. That's who
Jacob
it was.
Wall. And in fact,
Oh my God.
Jack
remember,
Berkman.
and his little partner, I think, wasn't he the one who said, I've been overhearing in coffee shops? Wasn't that
Jack
guy?
Berkman?
Yeah.
Jack Berkman. Yeah. And Jacob Wall. Something came down today about those two and I can't remember, I just saw it in passing, that some legal case against them on appeal just went against them. So they owe millions of dollars to somebody for one of their stunts.
The FCC announced it'll serve a $5.13 million fine against them for their role in making 1,141 unlawful robocalls before the 2020 election.
Wow.
And that was 2020. I mean, that was pretty recent,
Yeah.
I agree with you that there should be, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Trump doing something like that, or Trump operatives doing something like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, DeSantis has. I agree with you. There's something, there's something that's just off about him, and I think once people sort of saw it, I don't even know what it is, even in terms of the whole MAGA phenomenon, because you would think on paper, and I think on paper that's really what he has been about and why he attracted donors, because he was doing all these horrible things down in Florida and he won, in 2020 won big, or in 2022 he won big, and when nobody else really did win big. But I don't know what it is about him. I've been watching him very, very closely. And, I find him to be terrifying, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I think there's something, talk about something wrong with someone. There's something about him that is really kind of terrifying. And I say that just on a visceral level, even beyond his policies. And this idea that some people seem to have that, he'd be better than Trump. I don't think he would be. It's not that Trump isn't absolutely horrible, and the idea of him being president again is also terrifying. But I don't see a lot of improvement there with DeSantis, and they're all saying, well, he wouldn't try to overthrow the government. I'm going, are you sure?
We don't know that.
Really?
And he's an ideologue.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Trump's values are a little bit more fungible if he has any. He can flip on a dime because he has no soul. I'd rather bet on that guy than the psycho who's more committed. And to boil down what you're saying, Heather, I feel like he just oozes insecurity and weakness. That's the thing that I'm kind of settling in on. That's the thing that he can't even figure out how to say his name publicly because he doesn't want it to sound too ethnic.
Bizarre.
Well, his wife asked him to start doing DeSantis instead of DeSantis.
But how?
If Casey says it, then it'll happen. Yeah.
It's this and his instincts to do his announcement on Twitter Spaces in audio only format with Elon Musk. It shows that he is very susceptible to the current winds of whatever's trendy within the Republican Party without any real internal ballast and barometer for what actually plays. Trump has that instinctively, and DeSantis is a suck on that.
He's a robot in terms of that. He's very online, and it's as if he's just sort of capturing each day's outrage and then going around and, saying this is woke and, this is where woke goes to die, et cetera, et cetera. I agree with you. I think it may be the insecurity thing. But he's, the idea that this guy would not overthrow the government, I think is just bizarre when you consider, he started an election police force.
Yep.
In Florida, and Florida didn't have any problem with its election. He won in a landslide. It's this is not a guy that I would necessarily assume has any great respect for the democratic process. When you look at what he is doing in Florida, it's all right out there. He's scary.
He is a bit of a torture fetishist,
Yes.
if we are to
And
believe.
there's that
We
too.
know he was there. We know that in Guantanamo, he was ID'd before it really was public information that he had been there, as far as I can tell. as a guy who was sitting there laughing about what the torture he was witnessing. We don't have too much more time, but I wanted to touch on the sort of the other thing that's happening on the other side of the hill, or presumably, if you know, and that is the House Republican Caucus. The debt ceiling deal, we haven't had a chance to talk about it. I don't know what your feelings are about it. To me, it's sort of shocking that it got more Democratic votes than Republican votes, and there was not more leveraged, it seems to me, for those votes. I mean, I get the idea that the debt ceiling is potentially incredible jeopardy for the country. Then there is a move in the House and the Senate right now to permanently get rid of the debt ceiling as a sort of a weird whatever it is. It's not really a real thing. But the House, just the 12 House conservatives basically prevented the House from passing a bill on maintaining your gas stoves in your house. And there was some other element, I can't even remember what it was, that they were attaching to this. I mean, and it was all because they wanted a bump stock gun. And I should say, or not a bump stock, but like an add-on to handguns. And I should say, I've been informed that it's not just about handguns. This thing I want to bring up, it's about AR-15 style rifles that have a shorter barrel length. And the way that a handgun is defined is based upon the barrel length, and that this is basically a way of taking one of these shorter AR-15 style guns and turning them into a sort of almost like a full-on AR-15 in terms of stability as you fire, as if it was a rifle.
It's basically like adding a shoulder mount to the back of a pistol that's a semi-auto or something like that.
Exactly. And but what is your I mean, does any of this matter, the disarray that the Republican House Caucus has? I mean, it may matter electorally, but will it?
I don't know about electorally, but does it matter in the big scheme of things, in running of government and anything? I don't think it does. And in fact, if anything, it's a blessing. And observing the way the debt ceiling come down, forgetting the substance of it, which I agree with you on the substance, but on the politics of it, what it ended up revealing really is the weakness of the House Freedom Caucus, which kind of surprised me. I had not expected them to be that compliant. At the end of the day, they had the sword of Damocles hanging over Kevin McCarthy's head. And after what they did in January, when they, with the 15 votes, I assumed that they understood that power and were prepared to use it. And it seemed that, and Donald Trump was out there telling them, default, it's going to happen anyway. It's going to happen anyway. Might as well do it. He was out there saying this. And I really was convinced. I thought that this group was really nuts and that they were probably going to go ahead and push Kevin to have to either fall on his sword and save the country and the world economy from a catastrophe, by allowing them to, do the motion to vacate and kick him out, or he was going to capitulate to them and we would have a catastrophe. I was really convinced that was the only way that could really end, that particular situation was going to end, that it was all on Kevin McCarthy and whether or not he was willing to give up his speakership. That's how I was seeing it. That did not happen, and they didn't do that. And what it said was, at the end of the day, these guys are, and it takes me back to a piece that Chris Hayes wrote a year or so ago for The Atlantic about how the politics of the Republican Party have really, really changed. And what it is now is that they don't care about policy. That's not their interest anymore. Their interest is in this performative culture war kind of, playing for the Fox News hit. And at least in the House Republicans is particularly, although plenty of the Senate is exactly the same way now. So that legislating is no longer particularly relevant to them. And I don't really think they care, or even maybe it's even worse than that. They don't understand it. That's not their job as far as they're concerned. They don't see that as something that matters. So the debt ceiling was something that, they had a few, Chip Roy, somebody's out there, talking about numbers and doing this, but there's no Paul Ryans in the Republican caucus anymore. Nobody who's actually motivated by, tax cuts for the rich and smaller government and all that stuff. There's no, there aren't any Ayn Rand, acolytes that are running around in the House anymore. This is all about this Fox News, Newsmax, online, Marjorie Taylor Greene type stuff. So it's about Hunter Biden, and it's about, Chris Wray and doing a contempt of Congress thing. So what that shows is that when it comes to anything important, they are less relevant than we thought. That probably the moderate Republican, well, they're not moderates, the sane Republicans have ultimately more influence than I thought that they would have. And that showed in the debt ceiling thing. So this disarray that they're in right now, where they're running around. I mean, this is what cracked me up about it. Again, they're hysterical. They decided to stage a rebellion against the banning of the Protecting Our Gas Stoves Act, or whatever it's called, the Protection for Gas Stoves Act. And I saw that and I'm going, well, so what are they doing here? What is this about? I'm going, oh, not only is it ridiculous that there is such a thing as a Protect Our Gas Stoves Act, or whatever it's called. There's something similar, really. I'm not that far off. It's ridiculous that there is one. But it's their thing, right? I mean, this is their own this is their own thing. And so they stage a rebellion against that. And even Fox News, if you watch them at all over this, they were kind of scratching their heads going, what?
Why are you're literally cutting off your nose and your face to spite your leg or something. I don't know how that works out.
Yeah, it's crazy. So they just seem to be that, like, the upshot of this is that I'm finding them less threatening on a serious material sense than I did before. Now that could just be temporary. Maybe they'll wise up. I don't know. But that's where I wound up in this, and I was kind of okay. Well, I guess that's good news.
They don't understand their power. It's that Medicare and Social Security were taken off the table, so they couldn't go there. By
who? Who took it off the table?
Trump and the State of the Union.
But they could have rebelled against that and come out.
But it's the Trump thing. They didn't want to be on the wrong side of the Trump thing, and I think they were afraid of that. And then, I guess what is really clear here is that they know nobody else wants the job to be speaker. I mean, there may be. That's the thing is that their big threat is Kevin McCarthy, you're going to lose your job. But the problem that they realize is who's going to do this job? I mean, because if they take out McCarthy, then every subsequent person that gets the job, it's just a matter of time before they have to take them out.
That's right.
And then, they could have 4 speakers of the House over the next 16 months at that rate. But
I can give you the name of one person who would take it. Her name is Elise Stefanik, and I bet you she'd be standing at the front of the line to do it, even though it would be. On the other hand, she is angling for VP. So, maybe she's got bigger things in mind.
Scalise, maybe?
I would have thought Scalise, because he has been very deftly playing both sides on this. But in that debt ceiling thing, he came down really hard with McCarthy and apparently stabbed, I can't remember who it was, Andy Biggs or Clay Higgins or one of the real nuts in the caucus. He stabbed him in the back on some other piece of legislation, and they are totally pissed at Scalise now. So he's on their list. And
I think it's Andy Clyde Digby.
Oh, Andy Clyde. Oh, you're right.
From Georgia, the pistol stabilizing brace bill. Yeah.
Right. That's exactly right.
All right. Well, Heather, I guess we will know more about this in the weeks to come. Thanks so much for your time today. Heather Parton, you can check out her work at salon.com, or, of course, as Digby over at Hullabaloo. We'll see you again. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. It was great. Have a great weekend, you guys.
Yeah, you too.
All right, folks, we're going to take a break and head into the fun half. Just a reminder, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member, jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, don't forget justcoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Emma, why don't you tell us what's happening on ESPN? I'm going to duck out for a second. We'll see you in the fun half.
Sure. We are covering the NHL and NBA playoffs. We also spoke about the outrageous horse deaths and what if horse racing has outlived its place in society. We also will be on top of the latest updates on Monday, youtube.com/ESPN show. Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning?
Yeah, Left Reckoning. We just had David Griscom just had Chip Gibbons over on a Griscom stream this weekend. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning members, where we're closing back in on 1,000 members. We kind of fell back under after the midterms last year, but no, I'm not bitter about it. But for those nearly 1,000 of you who are patrons at Patreon.com/Left Reckoning, we're talking to Keith Orahal, professor who's focused on the political economy of rural America. And so we're demystifying the sort of red versus blue narratives and look at the way the economy's changed and what sort of political impact that has had in different rural areas across the country.
Oh, all right. Well, get those membership numbers back up, people.
Thank you.
Help them out. All right, guys. 646-257-3920 is the number. We will see you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy. Alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it to my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Denner.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Denner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males,
psych, fuck them.
Oh. Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on! Fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday! Happy birthday to me, Jew boy!
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on! Come on! Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back. Emma Vigeland, Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Apropos of what Heather was saying at the end, in terms of like that piece that Hayes wrote a while back, where the Republicans are not interested in policy, and that's been the case for years and years, frankly. There is no,